Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 24th through 30th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 2 movies, I watched 1 show, and I listened to 1 book. A lot of travel has happened since the last time I saw you. The last time I saw you, I was about to go off to the Abbey on Le Mont Saint-Michel, and we did that, and it was glorious. But since then, we've actually basically gone as laterally across the country as we can, and we're now in Strasbourg, which, fun fact, where we're staying is so close to the border that we can just walk to Germany for beer, and we have. We've actually casually wandered over the border twice. The first time I had a great banana weissen, and the second time we happened to randomly stumble into this bar run by this Italian man who now obviously lives in Germany, who has 12 daughters and is 66 years old and speaks 4 languages, although English not very well, so we did a lot of pantomiming to figure things out between us, and then also happens to have the same surname as my partner, so that was just a fun coincidence. For all we know, they're related, but I highly doubt it because it's a pretty common surname. We're actually staying in Strasbourg for about 4 weeks, and then we have 9 or 10 days between that and when we fly home that we don't know exactly where we're going yet, and then I'll be home in May. As for what I read this week, I read the 5th volume of Lock and Key, which is called Clockworks. This one actually has a lot to do with kind of how the keys came to be, and it very much goes back in time to show some of the characters from the present exactly what their parent got up to, and previous people to that as well. There's also some sinister things where one person is pretending to be somebody else, and people start to maybe question it a little bit, but it's not until the next volume, Lock and Key 6, which is Alpha and Omega, where all of this resolves itself. And it does get wrapped up in several neat little bows along the way. There was a point where I was reading it where I looked at the characters on the page and I went, "Hey Chad, who does this specific background character look like?" And he's like, "Yeah, that looks like Stephen King." And I'm like, "Yeah, that looks like Stephen King to me too. That's why I was asking. That's a weird thing to insert your dad into your comic book." And then we actually looked up what Joe Hill looks like, and yes, he very much looks like what his dad looked like back when we started reading Stephen King. So that was a weird moment. Now that I finished the comic book series, I will eventually watch the Netflix adaptation. If you have opinions on that, please let me know down below. Speaking of things I consumed when I was much younger, the first movie I'm going to talk about is Spider-Man from 2002. This came out while I was in high school. I watched it while I was in high school. In my house, there were 2 superheroes that were represented by the 2 kids. My little brother was always Batman, or always had Batman things. He still does. And I always had Spider-Man things. I still do. His wife, in fact, actually made me a Spider-Man blanket in the shape of a web. It's so cute. I have it on the back of my chair back home. I love it so much. But anyway, we grew up watching these cartoons and also the live action Adam West Batman from the 60s, and then eventually the movies as well. So when this movie came out, I was stoked because it had been very bat heavy for a while, and now we got to go into the Spider-Man lore. This was great. It is so camp, which I really appreciate. Also, there were a ton of people in this that like weren't very well known back then, and they're just there for a second. Or in the one case, there was one that is very well known, and I was like, wait, she clearly didn't just do like a tiny little, she did, okay. For example, did you know that this movie has Octavia Spencer in it? She's in it for a scene, but she's there. Obviously Bruce Campbell's in there because it's a Sam Raimi movie. Also the guy that plays Flash Thompson, you would definitely recognize nowadays. And there was definitely some other actor in the first of this trilogy that I was like, holy crap, they're big and famous now, and now I literally can't think of who it is. This of course is the Spider-Man origin story. It's fun, it's camp. I really enjoyed watching this, especially after having last week watched Far From Home, which we decided to basically go back to the beginning because it has been a very long time since I watched these. I probably haven't watched these since about the mid-2000s maybe, which means that the next night when we wanted to watch another movie, we watched Spider-Man 2. This one also had some surprise castings, Bruce Campbell in it again, but as a different character, and then also Joel McHale is in this for reasons, because why not? The story is obviously a continuation of what was going on in the last one, but it's a couple of years later. Peter is perpetually late to everything because he's off doing his Spider-Man stuff, and nobody can know about that, so he's failing in many aspects of his life to the point where his body just doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to continue to be Spider-Man or if he's just going to revert back to just being Peter Parker. There was also definitely the point in this where this character hurt his back, and it's definitely referenced later in Far From Home. So that was really fun to see, because obviously I knew that he must have hurt his back at some point, but I didn't know if it was something directly from one of the movies, because again, I haven't seen this since the year I graduated high school, which yes, my 20-year reunion is coming up in a couple of months, and I'm probably not going because I don't know if there's going to be anybody there I care to see. In any case, I'm very excited to get onto the third of this trilogy, because the only thing that I remember is Topher Grace is in it as Venom or Eddie Brock or something like that, and I remember that he had to like beef up for this role, or at least that's what I remember remembering at the time. I don't remember if that's actually accurate, but I do remember being excited about this, and it turns out he's the basically one cast member of that 70s show who wasn't a piece of shit, so that's fun. As for the show we watched the entire first season of Three Body Problem, because it's being advertised literally everywhere. I thought this was okay. I didn't really care all that much about it, and it was kind of interesting to see how these things that seemed pretty random came together. And there's a lot of philosophy to this, because you end up getting this problem where it's like, well, this isn't really a problem for me, but it is sort of a problem for me existentially, and yeah, I also have no idea how well this lines up with the books, because I have not read the books, but if the books have as much math as this has, I imagine that I would have a tough time with them. There were definitely parts that were well acted and certain circumstances that I didn't see coming, so it is interesting for that, but I don't know if it's 100% really my thing, which is fine. As for the audiobook I listened to this week, that is The Center. This is about this woman who works as a linguist. She actually tends to translate Bollywood films and do the captions for those in different languages. But for whatever reason, she doesn't really feel like a real linguist. Like, she wishes she could do something cooler, like translating Dostoevsky or like any of those types of things, which in itself speaks to like this hierarchy of languages, which is definitely discussed in this. Near the beginning of this novel, she starts dating this man, and he knows a lot of languages as well, which is kind of how they connect. And then all of a sudden, after he's gone away on a business trip, he comes back and he's fluent in her parents' native tongue, and she's just like, wait, I've been trying to teach you little bits for months now, and you couldn't figure out how to pick those up, so how are you now fluent? And he's basically forced to tell her about this thing called The Center, which is a language learning place that is very, very exclusive, to the point where he's only allowed to tell one other person in his entire lifetime, and I guess it's her. So she obviously wants to take advantage of this so she can follow her dream of doing some more high-class literary translation work, and it all is not as it seems. I will not tell you what the twist is, I will not tell you how this system works, but I will tell you that I'm pretty happy with some of my own life choices after reading this and seeing what people were doing and what they could justify. That's incredibly vague, and I was hoping it would be vague, and if you can figure out what the twist is just based on that, good for you. There was also an interview with the author at the end of the audiobook, and it talked about how she was actually writing this book during the pandemic, and it was the whole like idea of she's a person that really wants to write literature, write a book, and her character is obviously a person that wants to translate literature, translate books. What the fuck was that? So there was definitely a parallel there, and I think that if this has sounded at all interesting, you should definitely check this one out, because it goes some places you probably won't expect. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!